Welcome back. Well, it's been 5 years since the first COVID-19 case in South Africa was reported, leading to a state of national disaster declaration and a 35-day level 5 lockdown. Not only did the pandemic spark health fears, it resulted in a global economic crisis, recession, business closure and unemployment. As a result, the South African economy is still suffering from some of its impacts, but will it ever fully recover? Azar Jammine, chief economist at Econometrix, joins us now with more insights. Thank you so much for your time, Azar. On this day 5 years ago, we were in lockdown level 5 for about a month. And of course, we know the damage that the government restrictions had on the economy and really people's mental health. I know that in hindsight, right, that some of them didn't make sense in terms of the measures that the government took, and we ridicule them for it. But in that, do we miss the point of what government was trying to do?
I think we missed the point of what government is trying to do, but clearly our own government was not the only one in actually going overboard in trying to deal with the problem, and this resulted in a much worse outcome than might have been necessary.
Much worse outcome. Now, just outline, just how far the damage went, but also in that recovery, because we have had a lot of years now to recover. How far has the economy recovered from the pandemic effects on the economy?
I think this is where one is very disappointed. The knock that the South African economy took in 2020 was of the order of 6 to 7% decline in GDP. It recovered fairly sharply in 2021 by 4.9%. There was further growth in 2022 of 1.9%, but 2023 and 2024 have seen the economy growing by 0.7% and 0.6% respectively, which means that we've only just recovered above levels that prevailed prior to the pandemic. And that is a very disappointing outcome when compared with most of the rest of the world, where economic activity is considerably better than it was pre-COVID. In South Africa, we've simply recovered lost ground and very little more.
It's actually quite interesting when you lay it down that we saw that sharp recovery in 2021 and 2022, but looking at 2023 and 2024, it seemed that growth was slowing down. Of course, we know some of the other things that piled up, partly as a consequence of the monetary policy decisions that were taken during COVID, but also at the same time, would you say that there were lingering, or there are more permanent lingering adverse effects that remained from the COVID-19 days, where now we are seeing that the economy is not really able to recover at the levels that we desire because of those lingering effects?
Without doubt, there was some permanent damage to a lot of small businesses, especially in the services areas of the economy, that basically were wiped out. Personally, I have seen, even from our own business conditions, we lost a lot of clients overnight as a result of this and have not been able to recoup them at all. And from a different perspective, employment levels are barely higher than they were pre-COVID. It was interesting. Initially, there was a huge loss of employment, and it took quite a while for that employment to start picking up whatsoever. And then it suddenly, we had a bit of a spurt in employment creation in 2022 and 2023, and it has slowed down again in the past year, but leaving employment levels where they were before that.
Yeah, and really speaking to those economic growth numbers, because of course, absent from the, with the absence of significant and sustainable economic growth, we can't really create booming employment. Did the lockdown also, because we know that some of those negative impacts then spilled over to illegal ways of doing business. Did lockdown then significantly change the landscape of the illicit goods market and ultimately hurt areas of tax collection?
By all accounts, it has certainly damaged tax collection and resulted in an increase in illicit activity in certain industries such as tobacco and alcohol goods. The other permanent feature, or what looks to be a permanent feature of what it's left behind, is the fact that the government was compelled to introduce a social relief for distress grant, providing a payout of 350 Rand initially for all those who could not access the ordinary social grants, such as a child support grant. And the government has felt compelled to continue that social relief for distress grant to the present, to the extent that it is one of the big contributors towards this whole brouhaha surrounding whether or not we should be raising the rate of VAT at present.
Yeah, and actually really speaking to the struggles that the South African population is still undergoing, the fact that now we literally have to think of a more permanent way to keep that SRD going, and of course now leading to budgetary allocations. But we do have to wrap up the conversation there. Thank you so much for your time and really just taking us through what we have seen over the past 5 years. And as much as it may be a distant memory at this point, never forgetting the impacts that we are still feeling from the pandemic 5 years on. Thank you so much for your time, Azar. That was Azar Jammine, Chief Economist at Econometrix.